No mai, he te whānau to another episode of Planting Seeds. Man, we're just going to get straight into it, bro. I'm fucking happy to have you here, brother. This has been a long time coming. The brother Melodownz, welcome to the show, bro.
Thanks for having me, man. We've been talking about this for a minute, cuz, and yeah, I see, we're kind of on the same wave with things, and it's a pleasure, brother. Thank you, bro.
Bro, and I think, there was the first time I ever sort of came across you and we first actually connected was at Ihu Mātau, would have been a couple of years ago. We just sort of had that short interaction.
Yeah.
And then from there, I sort of started to see you popping off a bit, and recently we just started to sort of get more intentional about, building conversations around certain things that we're both into. And so having this time here, bro, just to sort of catch up and see what's been going on, I'm really looking forward to it, brother.
Thank you, brother. It's a pleasure, man. Like you said, bro, same wave. Ihu Mātau, man. Frontliners right here, bro. I feel we have something in common, and that's kind of pushing our indigenous narrative and our tupuna, just our purpose, really, bro. So, I appreciate your work as well, brother.
Thank you, brother. And I feel when we sort of start to think about, indigenous and our tipuna, it really does give us that sort of mana and gives us that sense of purpose. Then there was a kōrero that I heard, would have been when I first started podcasting, and it's from a fellow called Che Wilson, and it's about te rau kotahi, and what that sort of means is when, say, a single person goes onto a marae, the person who is greeting them, they would say no mai e te rau kotahi, because they don't see just one person, they see the 100 and the many that one person represents, know.
That's it, bro. I think, and that's for me, going into spaces, being in the music industry, going overseas, every time I have self-doubt, I have to remember, we come from a long line of warriors and fighters, and there's so much resilience in this DNA. It's man, why have I got my head down in this situation, man? We're fucking chiefs, and why am I swearing? But so for real.
It's empowering, bro, just to even sort of tune into that, because at the end of the day, bro, I think every single person goes through some kinds of things, and I think we're very blessed and fortunate to have such a strong culture, where all of those sort of stories of empowerment of our ancestors sort of standing in their mana, it's it's hard not to draw from that, eh?
Yeah, man, for real, bro. That's the most purest form you could be in terms of what we're doing. So,
and do you feel when you access that, bro, do you feel your creativity, your music, or everything else that you're sort of doing, even when you're on stage, do you have moments where you sort of are very connected to that, brother?
Yeah, bro. It's, for me, it's mostly a spiritual thing. How can I explain this? It's a real deep knowing that I never used to bring on board with me. But obviously there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of things going on when you're doing what you do, no matter what it is. But just being on stage, sometimes it's wow, you can really feel a presence, and it's never really happened outside of my mind or my heart or my spirit. But one time I was in Waiheke, and I played a concert actually, and it was crazy because I was performing the song, and then everybody just started looking up, and I was just hey. And my grandfather had just passed away, and he's from Waiheke.
Wow.
So he passed away probably 2 months before I played there, but everyone just started looking up, and it was this thing on fire. I think it was it might have been an asteroid or something, but it just flew across the sky. And although it would have been an asteroid or something out of my control, to me that was a sign, and I was it kind of sent a weird feeling down my spine, just being that was a sign from, my grandpops, and just knowing that he's watching kind of thing. And I took that on board, and so I take things like that serious if you see a fantail or a kōrero or whatever, it's everything has signs in life. And I think if you're tapped into that kind of energy or that kind of thing, you can really it's little Easter eggs in life, little hacks, sweet, if I saw this, something positive might come out of this, or there's something negative about to come my way. Just little hints from
something greater.
That's it, brother.
Yeah. And I feel, it's also how we interpret things, and it comes down to sort of awareness and our perception, and I think we sort of gain perception or more awareness depending on the lived experience that we've all had, and hearing that you're spiritual. And I feel that I've been connected spiritually and tuned into my intuition, and I sort of like look at those tohu or those omens or signs.
That's it.
And depending on how I interpret it is now my relationship with it. You know, so if I see something and it gives me a feeling to be wary, then I just sort of like, all right, I start to be a bit more cautious.
That's exactly it,
Whereas if I see things and I'm like, and I feel okay, I feel all good, I sort of see it as a sign to sort of, you know, bring me into that space, suppose. So I think, you know, when we're in that sort of space of connection and we're looking at sort of these tohu or these signs, I honestly feel it's how we interpret them, because I've been around people, bro, who'll sort of like talk about fan tales, or they'll talk about all of these different things where they've heard stories about what they mean for other people.
And they're trying to tell, they like put it on you, like, oh, if you see this, this is what it means.
Yeah.
And so when you see it, you're like, I didn't get that vibe.
Yeah, exactly, bro. So it's just being more in tune with that. And when sort of people come to me a little bit weary, I'm always like, well, based on like what you've seen, like how did you feel when it came through? Like, did you feel anything? And you build that connection with it. And I don't know if that's sort of like the way to go about it, but it feels what's right for me, you know? And so, and to be fair, bro, I'd rather be in a more positive way of being rather than interpreting it as, because in the past it's been like, oh, this is a bad tohu, this is a bad tohu, whereas like, nah, it doesn't have to be, you know?
I think like one thing when I was like 16, I used to go down the rabbit hole of like conspiracy theories and like reserve banks and all this shit. And while my boys are like out trapping and, you know, drinking and doing their shit, like I was on YouTube like getting my mind blown as a young watching Zeitgeist and like all these weird docos and shit. But like there was a lot of truth to them in terms of like the way that society is run and the Western world is run by a bigger force or whatever. But I was going to my boys and like, yo, this shit, like this is happening right now, like, bro, America's in debt with China, like, bro, I was like on that, and they're like looking at me like, bro, you're crazy. Like, kind of shit, you know. So like, but I just take everything with a grain of salt, man. Like,
I know. Have you just always been naturally curious, bro? Like around, you know, why you go into those rabbit holes, or being more open to exploring, like, you know, some of these bigger things that are at play. Like,
I think like my so it got to do with the upbringing or like your background, right? Like, so my mother's she's half Samoan, and my grandmother's full Samoan, and so they pretty much raised me with my grandfather. But my grandparents were like, my grandmother was like a Samoan Catholic, like real stubborn Samoan.
Right.
Like this is like anything outside of Jesus and Catholicism, like that's the devil kind of thing. But my mom was always open-minded. Like she got into crystals and like tarot card readings and stuff, and she had to hide it from my grandmother kind of thing. Like she got into like Buddhism and just like not like straight Buddhism, but like just she was open-minded to the fact that something higher, like more than just a religion. And so she didn't put that on me, but she was like, you know, you're more than welcome to believe in whatever you want to believe in. Like we'll take you to church and you can, you know, get this concept with Nan and stuff at the Samoan church, but I just want you to know this is it's bigger than this, and you can believe in whatever you want to do. So that's kind of for me to hear that, you know, like and to see like just the values that I got raised with. My mother raised me as like I think my religion was just like love and like compassion and having like no judgment towards other people kind of thing. For me, that was like a belief. And so that's kind of how I got into more like, but then obviously like I think I was the last generation to play outside kind of thing before the technology. Like like I was like a kid when Bieber was popping off and stuff, so I started getting on YouTube and whatnot, and then you type on one thing and then another thing comes up, and next minute you're just like boom, like Illuminati, like all this shit, like Freemasonry, 33 degrees, like all this shit, and I'm just like my mind's just going like this as a stimulated like kid going through puberty. It's just like bro, this government's all shit. Like that's how I was feeling in that.
Bro.
And then I went to my boys. They were just, you know, down to drink at the park, like talk about the league or whatever the boys do. And then like I was bringing these ideas to the boys, and they're like,
"What are you up to?
What are you smoking too much weed, bro?" Like, but as you do. But I think I've learned a lot from, you know, just kind of finding alternative narratives and like not believing in them or anything, but just taking everything with a grain of salt.
Because I feel that too, bro. You know, like you go down those rabbit holes and you sort of like start to try and like make sense of what it is that you're sort of like consuming, and at the end of the day, like something that I arrived to is, now with all that I know, like what the hell am I going to do with it? That's the thing is, for me, is like, all right, I'm taking all of this in, but like, how can I present myself? And because at the end of the day, I don't feel I can influence all of these bigger things that are happening by just talking about it or anything like that. But if I can take in all that I know and implement it into my life and make the small changes, I think that's where the impact is going to happen.
That is, because man, like, there's so many people out there that they post a lot of shit or they say a lot of things, but at the end of the day, I'm like, that's cool, but how are you going to contribute that, all the stuff, and unpack that into a society that we live in for the better, you know? And so like, if something doesn't serve me, I'm not going to put it out into the public, you know? Like if it's something that I feel like, this could impact another life, like another human being or another narrative, then I'm all about it. Whereas I see a lot of people like can post shit and say shit, but then it's like, how is that gonna come into
and
fruition?
Furthermore to that, it's, are you consistent with what you're putting out?
Exactly.
You know, it's easy to do one thing, but like, are you actually sort of like living that, you know? Because we can all take in knowledge and we can all share it, but I think the way that it transcends is like when you actually start implementing it into your life and live in that way. Because that's the best way to communicate is by action, you know? And I always started to think back about like our tipuna, and I think one part of being a leader wasn't necessarily about, you know, just always talking about it. It was the person who actually done the thing. You know, they led by example.
And I got a couple friends like that, you know, like they won't say anything, they'll just do it. And when they do it, you're like, wow, that meant a lot. And it's like, bro, whereas I'm the type of person, if something great happens to me, I'll be like, bro, guess what? You know, like I'm telling everybody. Whereas the person like, oh yeah, and then they let their actions talk. Whereas, wow, it's a beautiful trait. You know what I mean?
But the same cuz.
Bro, if something good happens to me, bro, I'm telling the world. A lot of like things like in terms of like the music stuff, like, oh, we've done this and we got this. You're flying here, or like I really want to be like, you know, I just gotta. But then at the end of the day, you know, at the end of it all, it will show itself. So.
And it's also that balance, between, you know, sort of like celebrating your success, but also not also getting too ahead of yourself as well. It's like, all right, how can you be in this moment and enjoy all of the good that is happening? But finding space for that, bro, is definitely, I think, a good trait to have also, you know. But it is, bro, when you look around at, you know, some of the friends who are just out there killing it and just doing it, you know.
It's beautiful, man.
One thing I really appreciate about you, which is something you expressed recently, bro, was when you got your award, and you sort of spoke about for those who are sort of like going through challenging times, and you sort of acknowledged your award to them. And so, you know, where did that come from for you, bro?
Bro, I came from that because I was suffering as well. Like I was going through like a depressive state. Like I had a health issue that happened, and like everyone like online, everyone's like, "Wow, Melo's doing so good," blah blah. But like in my heart and in my mind and everything, I'm just like, damn, like I'm feeling the most lowest I've ever been. And so when I won those awards, I was just like, man, I know I'm not the only one going through like not like the exact same thing I'm going through, but like they're going through their own struggle. So if I could just voice that and say, you know, this is for everybody that's going through a silent battle, because I know that a lot of people are. I feel like if, like, you know, one of those people heard, that would just be like, oh, wow, I'm acknowledged, you know, like no matter who you are. So that was just kind of like spur of the moment, like, because I only got told that I was going to win one award, which is cool. I was like, oh, sweet. So I was, because like of the restrictions, you have to
right.
Only the winners could go or whatever. And then so like when I got the second one, I was just like, oh, this is like, and then just went boom. What do I say? Oh yeah, sweet, and just came out, kind of thing. So I never write anything down. I feel it's best just to come straight off the top, straight from the heart, and that's how it gets across. But like, yeah, that's the space I was coming from at the time. I was in a very dark space, and like I felt, man, if I'm in a dark space, and I should just, you know, voice out that this is for everybody going through their own silent battles, because no one really knows what people go through, and and especially being a man as well, Polynesian male. I know it's cliche these days, they say, but like there's a lot of that going on, you know, like
100.
You might check up on your bro and be like, oh, so how are you? And they're like, yeah, oh, cause those mean. Then you might leave and then they'll just burst into tears or go in their little dark hole. We just never know. And I think it's like us as like communicators, as messengers, I think it's our responsibility to normalize that, like, fuck, man, I'm not having a good time. And like, I might not want to talk about it, but man, I do need some support. I don't know what that looks like, but, and that's where that, when I said that speech, that's where it came from. Yeah.
And that was beautiful, bro. I definitely did feel it because, yeah, man, there's a lot of people out there who are going through that sort of like silent battle, and I think also there's parts of a lot of people who might not even know that they're in that space either. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's like they just sort of, it becomes like almost normal for them to sort of like feel that way, whereas, you know, more often than not, once you sort of like get better, you're like, holy shit, I didn't even know how bad I was. You know, and that's sort of like something that happened with me last year is there was just a lot of internal kind of doubt, bro. You know, like I was just doubting just myself and like, oh, who are you to do this? And all of those kinds of like thoughts. Like there was space in myself where all of that started to come in, and I couldn't push through it, bro. Even though there were good things happening and there was stuff that was flowing and I was trying to show up for those things, I was just in this trying to internalize like what is going on here, and I knew what was there, but I just couldn't break through, bro. And it happened to sort of like come through just me making a decision to like get the fuck out of my own way, to be honest, bro. Like that's all it came to, because for me it got to like, bro, enough's enough. At the end of the day, you know, like I'm the one that's in my own way. These are my thoughts. No one's giving them to me, you know. So as soon as I broke through that, bro, it's just been like strength to strength.
Man, that's cool to hear, bro. That's beautiful to hear. Yeah, sometimes I'm similar. Like I had that time when like that experience when I went to LA and I had sessions with like TDE producers, like people that have got Grammys and stuff, and I walked in the studio and I had like plaques of like Kendrick Lamar and shit that this producer has got, and I'm like, fuck, what the fuck am I doing here? Like me and my DJ me and my bro, sorry, fuck, I always say that he's like my friend, but I'm like, me and my DJ, but yeah, anyway, he's like my best friend, one of my bros. Anyway, we pulled up and I'm just like, fuck, I'm like paranoid, like we just finished having the strongest like Cali weed as well, so like I don't smoke much weed anymore, and when you're in LA you gotta do it. I'm just like fucking paranoid, like shit, bro, what the fuck, this is my first session, I just got off the plane looking at like Drake plaques and like Kendrick and Pink and all this shit, and I'm like, bro, what the fuck is he gonna think about me? I'm from the underground, bro. But like I started at Avondale drinking Cody's in the garage, you know what I mean? And then I was like to my bro, what the fuck are we doing here, bro? Like, and he's like trying to back me up, like, bro, we earned this, bro, we worked our way here, G, like no matter what happens here, bro, we're here now. And I'm just like, alright, got in there. The producer was the nicest guy, you know, and I thought he would have some kind of pre perception on me, being like, this guy better be good, like. And then he had already heard my music, and so him and his band were already jamming like some shit. Some
of your songs and shit, or nah?
Like they were just going off like demos that I had made. Like, this is your vibe. You like this chord? You like this? And I'm like, yeah. And I was just like, fuck, what the fuck was that? Why did I think that? You know? And I was like, bro, as long as you're your authentic self in any situation, man, you're just gonna get through it. No matter if it's negative or positive, at least you're gonna learn from it. But for me, that was my first kind of experience with imposter syndrome.
Yeah, bro.
I felt like, man, what am I doing here? I'm from West Auckland. Like, I literally was rapping, drinking Cody cans with the boys, like, growing up. And, like, a person like myself is not supposed to be in these situations. Like, that's what my mind was thinking, you know? Because it's just like, and for me to just acknowledge the work that you've done and acknowledge, like, now, wait a minute, hold up. I've been doing this shit for 10 years and I'm only getting noticed like small now in my country, so now we deserve to be here, kind of thing. So it's that internal battle that you have with yourself, like you were saying, is like, man, like what the fuck am I doing here? Oh nah, shit, that's right, I've worked this many hours at it. Like all those times like the boys were going out and I was at home just writing, or like people getting real jobs and I was like living at home with my mom writing rhymes, like trying to think about like what the fuck am I gonna do as a career. All those times have paid up to this moment, you know what I mean? So I was just like, that's why I'm here.
And you got to go through those sort of like experiences, and then it's actually when you take that step into it, bro, and it all starts to sort of like dissipate, bro,
that's exactly it. When the bro was like, oh, welcome, bro, like, bro, what? Because he was looking at me like, bro, what? Where are you from? Like, because I'm light skinned and I got the locks or whatever. I'm just like, oh, I'm Samoan Maori, you know, like, he was like, Maori, what's Maori? You know, then I had to take him back, like, I'm from New Zealand, we're colonized, like, this is our struggle, like, this is our struggle as Maori, like, they never knew about Maoris, you know, like, as African Americans. So I was breaking down the whole colonization thing, and then the whole Samoan thing as well. So it was cool to have that cultural exchange.
And they would have helped you sort of like remind you as well, bro, of like why you're there too.
Yeah, that's exactly. I'm like, oh shit, oh, I'm talking about this. Like, nah. So it was beautiful. Like, just that's what I love about traveling, is meeting other cultures and just like sharing different experiences, but the same struggle almost, you know, like, obviously, like, African Americans come from slavery and shit, and we come from like colonization and what's happened. Like, obviously it's two different struggles, but there's a fine line where it's like we have similar kind of feelings towards.
There's a mutual understanding, bro?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, struggle is struggle,
That's it, bro. That's it. Yeah. So it's always acknowledging where that comes from is like such a cool thing.
Bro, and talk about your music, bro. Like, you're talking about like popping Cody's, like, were they the silver bullets, bro? Or like, you know, like,
bro, straight up court case in a can, my G. Shit. It's either like, if we're not home in the garage by 5 a.m, bro, I'll be in the cells or sleeping in a park, bro, waking up at random girls' houses, like, bro, who is this? I'm lying, bro. It was nuts, brother. Like, I think just a lot of kids, like, a lot of people my age and like your age or whatever know what it's like growing up as a, you know, just like a
just full of energy, bro.
Yeah, just
like
energized,
keen ears on anything,
energized indigenous human being living in a Western world. You know what I mean? It's like we're conditioned to think things, and then obviously things don't go our way when we're growing up, and like especially like when I was growing up, I had a few friends commit suicide. You know, just off. Couldn't even give you a reason, but. Like, so there was like quite traumatizing deaths and not in my upbringing, but like just in my teenage years, where they kind of molded me to who I am to this day, like to have a voice and to speak out and shit like that. But that, so back then, bro, we're just on the fucking, bro, my mom gave me a car, like she gave me like this, my first car was her like old Toyota Bomb. It was called a Toyota Corona. And like, bro, we were just cruising around, like we're all on our learners. Bro, I was selling tinnies, bro. Like, I was out of it, bro. Like we had no money and shit. Like, I would pull up with different number plates to the gas station, full up and just bounce, like, like the most piteous shit, bro. Like, the most piteous shit. And I remember one time we got pulled over by this cop, and he was like, "Who's got the full license?" And we all had. There was like 4 of us were learners, and then my bro was like, "Bro, surely 4 learners equals a full license officer," and he was just like laughing as well, bro. Yeah, we just went through some raw times. I think like a lot of like polys and, you know, Maoris and shit, or just people from the hood and that they can understand. Like it's funny. Like when you look back, it's funny, but at the time, it's just like an adrenaline rush, you know. Yeah. Just trying to find yourself, navigate through all that shit, bro. Because I feel like there wasn't any like safe spaces where we could talk about like our
things
homies,
that were going on.
Like the birds dying and fucking we were just getting wasted, bro. Like, cause we didn't give a fuck about like school at the time, cause it's like, bro, who's next? Like kind of thing. We're just like living for the now. Like, alright, let's put all our money together. Let's buy a box of flames, buy a couple of tinnies. Let's go to the greenhouse. It was like near the Avondale racecourse, like a changing room. And we're just like, it looked like it was locked, but we'll open it, and then just the bro would just like have his drinks there, have his like little laptop and shit, and start making beats. And that's kind of how we started making music, bro. Just freestyling. Like, obviously it's wrong, we're wagging in school and that, but that's where I found my passion to rap and shit. Was like doing those things and expressing myself, getting it off my chest. That was the beauty of hip-hop for me.
So it was like going through all of those sort of like experiences, the energy, but also just that raw emotion that was just circulating within you guys, bro. Like,
I laugh just because like, I'm just thinking back, bro. It was like, bro, what the fuck were we doing, bro? Like,
well, you're just trying to find your way.
We were having fun, but at the same time, it was just like, bro, I wish, like, I see kids now and they like full on like 17-year-olds into crypto spaces and into starting their own businesses. I was just like, bro, if only you knew what I was up to when I was 17, bro. Like, but shit like that, man.
Do you remember like when did you first realize like, fuck, I actually can do something with this music? I actually got like, I can actually, you know, rap. I can actually like put rhymes together.
Well, that's the thing, bro. Like when I was growing up, all of us could rap. But I just had like, as soon as I discovered it, like my heart just fell in love. I was just like, I love this shit. Like I was putting songs on Bebo back in the Bebo days, like when I was in intermediate and high school and shit. And I really liked the reaction I got off those songs. And so like that's when I found the passion. But it wasn't until I left school and I was working in a factory, and like I was pushing forklifts, bro. I was on minimum wage. I was making like $400 a week, bro. Like I was on like $14 an hour, working like 10-hour shifts and shit. And I was just like, no qualifications, you know, like, and I'm just like looking around in my life, like, fuck, is this my future? Like, I'm like, what the hell the fuck did I get into this situation, bro? Like, but I still had this passion for music, and I just started kind of like finding like-minded people that were into the music as well. And I got like one of the bros' uncles owned like a bar in Aotearoa. Sorry. And he was like, oh, come and play. And I had this like, you know, this big perception of like, it's gonna be sold out, like there's gonna be girls there. I'm like telling the boys like, gee, I got a show this weekend, gee, come pull through and like be my hype man and shit. He's like, oh yo, is girls gonna be there? I was like, yeah, it's gonna be packed. Like, you know, I'm just creating the story, like, bro, let's roll, put our gas money together. Bro, we pull up and it's just hostile as fuck. Like, motherfuckers outside like, gee, where you from? Oh, bro, we from AD. It's like, hey, bro, we from Aotearoa. Like, bro, everyone's from Southside. And I'm just like, fuck. Pull up there, there's no one near, G, like maybe like 20 people there max, like playing the show. And no one was there. All the boys are like, gee, you said it was gonna be a vibe. It was like stale. But that's where I discovered like, fuck, I want to do this.
You still wanted to do it, eh, bro?
Yeah, there was like dudes at the pokies and shit, like playing pokies, just watching me, and some like those pokey noises were louder than my show. Like that's where I came from. So like just looking back then, I was like, I closed my eyes and I pictured, you know, 1,000 people in the crowd, when really there was like maybe 5 aunties, 5 people from the show, you know, and just the acts. And I'm like, fuck. But that just the visualization of that was the thing that got me through it. Like, I'm just gonna put in, there's 1,000 people here, and I still went hard. And it's like, even though it was an empty pub, like I was going hard, and so it would have looked weird for a dude going hard out in front of nobody, but that's how passionate I was, that's how hungry I was. And then I had the same visualization when I played at One Love, you know, like I was just like, holy shit, there was like 20,000 people in front of me, and I'm like, bro, I started in Woody's bar in Aotearoa visualizing this shit, and it's happening. Like for me, it was like a little handshake in my head, like, yeah, this is cool, because we manifested that shit. And that's when I, like, back when I was, you know, playing these shitty ass gigs, for my journey personally, that's what I had to go through
100
to realize that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. And even now, like, I don't want to do the music thing for the rest of my life, but what I've learned is the music and the platform that it allows you to have is more important than the actual music itself. You know 100. What I mean? It's like so many people, like, you understand what you do. It's just like so many people are impacted by the things you say or the things you do. And for me, that keeps me alive. It's like, man, every time I wake up in the morning feeling like shit, at least I know, you know, like, man, I made someone's day yesterday just by being my authentic self. And that's not an everyday feat for somebody, you know. So for me to just acknowledge that, it's just like, that keeps you going kind of thing. So yeah.
Bro, that's mean. And at the end of the day, bro, like, show me someone who's just started and is performing to 1,000 people, you know. Show me someone who's like just started and is, you know, performing to 20,000
like,
people.
It's a journey, man. Like, I think with the internet today and like the whole viral kind of thing, it's way more easier to go that path. Whereas like you can have an overnight success of a song, and then boom, you're like playing. You're on. But I think it's a longevity. Like, how long will that last? You know, once you got that one banger or whatever, people are gonna want another one. Thing? Yeah. They just want to know for that one thing. They're like, man, I need another one of those from you. Whereas I come from the underground, so I've never made a hit. Like, I've never made like a radio song that's like, this is a hit. You know what I mean? It's just like, it hasn't really been my style. So it's cool because my fan base is real organic like that. Like, they just fuck with me for my like underground shit. So that's, for me, that's a win. So yeah.
And do you have ambition to someday have that hit, bro? Like,
yeah, like I'm slowly crossing over and shit. But I'm with a major label as well now. It's like, you know, that it's not all about lyricism and like, this is a numbers game. It's a business first and foremost. And this is the beauty of me learning about all this shit. Is like, man, I'm learning about money. I'm learning about GST, about having an accountant, like the whole package of being in this industry as like as an artist, or like as someone that owns a business. And that's the next stage of like navigating the industry kind of shit. Is like, oh, cool, man. Like, I've got this. I want to create this now. I want to create this. I want to create like all these different avenues to have like the freedom to be able to do what we do. And that's what I love about like the crypto space we're talking about as well. It's just like this, the
endless potential there,
exactly it.
And I feel again, bro, like, you know, having the experience that you've had is like to perform into like 20 people, you do have to sort of like put in the reps. And for you it's sort of, you know, just how bad do you want it? Are you willing to, you know, and for you to still fucking go hard and sort of have that view like, nah, there's 1,000 people, they might not be there, but they're in my mind, and eventually they will be there.
Exactly.
And
bro.
It brings up a experience that I had, bro, around speaking. So I used to do like speaking and still do to an extent, but I was over in Melbourne one time and I was with someone, a mentor of mine, and he's a great speaker, bro, just super next level. And he took me with him, and we were just going to like high schools. And I remember, bro, we were in this auditorium, and bro, there were like kids all up in this auditorium, but they were looking down at me. And bro, I got up and started talking, and I just went mute, bro. For about, and it felt like bloody like 20 minutes, bro. And I just had nothing to come out, because in my eyes I saw people sort of like talking, and they weren't really tuning into what I was saying. So I just felt very vulnerable. And I remember that feeling, bro, and I just ended up out of nowhere, bro, I just busted out in a haka, cause like, you know, just out of nowhere, bro, just sort of like, that was the thing that came up for me, because in that moment I felt super vulnerable, but I didn't want to sit down without them knowing me, who I was. And I remember we had another session after that, and there was something that came over me, and I didn't want to get up, bro, like, because I was just so like embarrassed and shame about, you know, everything that went just like an hour before. And then I heard this voice in my head that I was like, if you don't get up and talk now, you might not talk ever again, you know. And so I stepped into that fear, bro. I stepped into that vulnerability and that shame, and I ended up speaking like that next chat, and it ended up being my best, bro, because I spoke about something that actually happened. You know. And so because of that, when I do speak, I know what the worst case scenario is. Like, I've experienced it. And so now I just sort of learnt the lesson that if I just speak from this and just believe in what I'm saying, then that's going to translate whether one person listened or other people are distracted. I just got to speak from that place.
I think that's the beauty of coming from the heart, man. Like, because with this music shit, I've been like, you know, like asked to come to like, what is it, school kind of school fair, not fairs, like talent quests, and like be a speaker at different things and stuff like that. And I remember I went to one of them, and like everyone had their like papers and shit, and I'm like, oh, was I supposed to organize something? Like, they were just telling me, you know, pull up and just talk about your journey and like the key things that helped you get through your darkest times. I was like, oh yeah, sweet, I can just. Everyone had these like bits of paper, and it was funny because before I went, a constable went, like a police officer from the community, and he was telling me all these, like, he was telling everyone all these stories of like, and I'm sitting there like, oh shit, like, because I'm quite intimidated by police, like it's just a thing from when I was younger. I've kind of changed now, but speaking after a cop is a very hard thing, was a very like triggering thing for me, because I was just like, oh man, like I'm gonna be talking about shit that comes from here that the police won't like, kind of thing. So I did it, and I did it in a way where at the end the cop came up to me and he shook my hand, and he was just like, you know, like, respect for, you know, telling your truth, and I was just like, yeah, I don't want to fabricate something, but that was very, very like kind of, I felt real vulnerable and real like judged, because like, bro, like there was like 5 cops at the back with their suits on, just like sitting down and I'm like, oh man. But yeah, it just flowed from the heart, man. And that's when I realized, bro, I don't want to have another piece of paper ever again, unless I really have to, in terms of like curriculum or something that I have to write down. But yeah, that like
I'm
you were
with
saying,
you on that, cause
it just flows, man.
Because when you plan something, you sort of like, you don't allow space for magic to happen.
Yeah.
You know, because that's what people always ask me about the podcast. It's like, bro, do you plan anything? I'm like, no, I don't plan anything. Like, I just sort of like tune into this and sort of like allow the energy of the conversation to flow the conversation. Whereas if I had planned questions, it sort of keeps it limited to what those questions are, as opposed to allowing it to flow into many different directions, which is natural to me. It's anyway.
Like a tree, it just branches off into stuff.
100. And so, bro, you're like an entrepreneur, bro. Like, you're just always like got that, I don't know if it's like your hustler sort of like way of thinking. You're always looking at the next thing or the next opportunity, or you can see a gap and you're like, oh, how can I fill it? You know, like, you know, what are the other things that you got going on in your spare time or your other interests, bro?
Yeah, so I've got like, that's the thing. I've got so many ideas, but I've only got the capacity to execute so much stuff. You know, like, I don't want to be that guy that has all the ideas and doesn't execute anything. You know, but like, I'll just start. I did a couple years back. I really like the Hot Ones interviews and stuff, and I was like, man, I really like how they're doing the hot sauce. Like, and I was like, hot sauce. I was like, man, no one's doing hot sauce. I want to do my own hot sauce. And that was at the time, like, I had one of my projects coming out, and then I was like, hold on, maybe I can get the QR code of my project before it drops and put on the hot sauce and sell the hot sauce twice as much because they're buying my record as well, and then they can count as the charts as well. So I was like, let's do that. So I made 200 bottles of hot sauce, and I designed, because I draw as well, I drew my own little design and labels and everything. Went to the Avondale markets, and I knew my most powerful tool was my Instagram account. And I was just like, sweet, as soon as it hits like 11 a.m, I'm gonna be like, yo, everybody come through, it's a Sunday, I got all the hot sauce, and when you buy my hot sauce, you're actually buying my new project, kind of thing. And then I had the socks as well, so I just had it all laid out on the table. And because when you go to the Avondale market, you have to kind of start real early. You have to pull up at like 6, and like all the regulars were there with their like coffees and their plants, and they were looking at me like, oh, I feel sorry for this guy, he's trying real hard, like. And I was like, don't worry. In my head, I was like this lady came and bought like 4 hot sauces of me just because she felt sorry for me. And I was like, don't you worry, it's a Sunday, everyone's hungover. As soon as I do this post, and she was like, oh, it's okay, I'll buy 4. And I was just like, the audacity. And I was like, the audacity.
But okay.
I was like, okay. And then like soon as 11 a.m. hit, boom, like, bro, just whole crowd around my table just sold out. And that lady's like, I wanted to go back to the lady and be like, can I buy a couple back, like, so I can sell to people that actually want it, kind of thing. So that was like, yeah, that is cool. And I felt like a girl guide, you know, like selling her little biscuits or whatever. But then this lady that owns the markets came and started yelling at me like, you can't sell this, you don't have a food permit, who do you think you are? What? I'm telling Inland Revenue about you, blah blah. I'm like, yo, I'm just the artist, like, I'm just trying to do my thing. What about the little girl selling her lemonade on the street? Come on, like, it's the same thing. And so like I got this little warning, you know, like I had, like, because I didn't clear any of it, it was just kind of like straight cash, and I was just like, it's an honest, like, thing. I was quite down, so I didn't make any more hot sauce. And then I played this festival, and this kind of English kind of white guy approached me after, and he was like, oh, yo, I run Hallertau Brewery, we'd love to, you know, make your hot sauce with you, like, do a partnership. So I was just like, oh, now we're talking, you know, like. And so shout out to bro David from Hallertau. He like let me use his commercial kitchen, and we just went 50-50 on the splits. And on top of that, we made my own beer as well. So I was just like even bigger. And he invited me to lunch, and like he was like, the people he was hanging out with were like, you know, they own land on Rakino's Island, and they own parts of islands and shit. And I'm like, holy,
that's the table.
Yeah, and these guys are all like white guys in their 60s or whatever, 50s or whatever, and I'm like, nah, I'm at the right table. And so I was just learning off like their business talks and going to different meetings and shit. And from there I was just like, man, if I can sell hot sauce to these people, I can sell socks to anyone, like, because I always wear novelty socks, so I'm like, I want to make my own. So I did that, and then those sold, and I'm like, man, it's just like, I think I got the template from selling weed. I know it's like bad and shit, but it's like, man, if you can sell weed to anyone, you can sell anything to anyone. Yeah, like, it can be a pen, it can be like, you know, you can sell water to a fish. You just gotta, it's just having that knack, bro. And that's what I've learned with like with music and with anything. It's just a product, you know. Like, and when we're like growing up and shit, you know, we don't learn about these things. But just through life, I'm like, man, I know it sounds like weird, but I'm a product now, and I need to capitalize on being a product while I still have a window, you know. So that's what I've been doing, like trying to distribute kava, doing like the hot sauce, doing the merch. I got a denim jacket.
The Japanese denim jacket.
Japanese denim. So anything that I have, like, I don't know if it's like a thing. Like, do you get frustrated when you think of something and it's stuck in here? Like, it's stuck in here.
Yeah. I need to do something.
I need to get it out of my head. Like, I literally get like, fuck. I get real restless, and I'm like, because every day I'll come home and it'll still be in my head, and then it goes onto my iPad, and I'm like, oh, unless it's out of my head onto my iPad, then it's written down. But then it's like, after that, I'm like, man, I need to get off the iPad into these emails, so then I get some drafts coming back. So that's how my processes work, is like, and then when I see it in front of me, like when I got the sample of the denim jacket, I'm like, yes, just like got that off my chest. But now I need to get it out there, or now I got the hot sauce in front of me, now I need to get it out there, kind of thing. So that's how kind of my mind works. Is like, when I come off an idea, I get really frustrated when it doesn't come to fruition, and then it's hard for me to move on, because I'm like, nah, I need to.
You just gotta do it. Yeah.
Like, as much as I want to do it for the people, sometimes it's a selfish reason, just getting it out of your head, like getting the idea out of your head to give more room for other ideas, kind of thing. But
well, it's just an obsession with creating at the end of the day, bro. Like, you're just a creative, you know, whether you're doing your art, whether you're doing music, whether it's, you know, entrepreneurship is a creative path, you know what I mean? And I think you're just in flow with that, and I think you're so in tune that you are a creative, you know?
I think, and just like coming off that is like, because when I first done the hot sauce and my merch, and like initially it was just me doing everything. Like I was just like pumping out, like, you know, the hot sauce, the labeling, sending it, and then it got to the point where it's just like, man, you really need a team. And now I've got a team around me,
man.
Bro, it makes it so much easier. Like, obviously you got to give, like, you know, splits to everybody's got to eat, but it's so much better because the productivity is just like boom, boom, boom. Like, I could be like, oh, to my manager, like, oh, can you do this so I can work on this, kind of thing. And just knowing that it's getting done while I'm working on the next thing is just like, oh man, this is how I see like operations start moving. And I'm like,
because you're, at the end of the day, your ideas are still being like coming out, but you've just got other people around you that's sort of like making it happen, bro.
Yeah, but I feel like the more the money comes out of you, the more it comes back, if that makes sense. So the more you invest in other things and other workers and other productivity, it comes back double, like tenfold.
Was that hard for you to sort of like understand that, bro? Because obviously, you know, you like have the money and you're like, oh, fuck my precious. You know what I mean? But when was it where you're like, nah, fuck, I actually need to like explore and like put money here, put money there?
It was when I first got a manager, because I was never managed like 2 years ago. I've known my manager for ages, but it was that time, you know, I was getting a bit hectic in my emails, and he was just like, man, I'd love to take you on board and take it to the next level. And I didn't know what that looked like at the time. So I was just like, oh yeah, I mean, you know, like talking about different offers and things like that. And it wasn't until, I think, because I was with another agent, and my fees were all good, but it wasn't until he's like, bro, I got a lot of damage control to do for your fees and stuff. Like, you know, I want you to be this much, but then the promoter's like, oh, we booked Melo last year for this much. And that was just me being independent and not knowing my true worth. So like he showed me like, oh, bro, I can make that off a show. And he's like, what the fuck do you mean? Of course you can. And I was just like, oh,
bro,
shit.
These bigger places are just taking the piss, bro.
Yeah,
it's like, you know, like they're only gonna give you what, like, as little as they can, and bro, if you don't know.
And because I'm not business savvy at all, bro. I come from the hood, or like I'm not like, nah, blah, blah. Like, I should have been more onto it, but when I saw money, I was like, oh yeah, sweet, I'll do that, you know? Whereas now it's like, my man's like, boom, he'll go like negotiate and get it to a point where it's like, damn, this is dope, you know? Like, and
so with getting him on board, you're sort of paying him, but he's sort of out there sort of making
but
more
at first
stuff.
he's like, oh, I take this percentage and blah, blah. And I'm like, hey, like, I'm not used to that. Like, but then just working with the bro, like, and when you, like, for the artists and for the people that are listening, like, when you find a manager, it has to be someone you trust, like someone that you trust to look in your bank account. Like, that's how much the trust has got to be, because like, obviously my business bank account, but like, I think the trust has to be that tight for you to understand somebody like that. So that's like the kind of vibe me and my manager have, to make things work, you know, to make the operations do its thing. And like, because when I have to pay people, sometimes I lose track. He's there to be like, oh yeah, sweet, I can do that. And then I'll just go and me and my accountant will go over and see if everything's correct or whatever. But it's a team, bro. It's a team effort, man.
But that's the part of it, bro. There's the creative side, but then there's the business side, and they're completely different, but they need to sort of like both be competent to sort of like get to another level, and that's amazing to hear, bro. And when we just sort of like start to look at like your personal life, I see you meditating now. I see you sort of like really putting a lot of effort into your health and all of that, bro. And how's that been going for you, cuz?
It's been beautiful, man. Like obviously I had a bit of a, you know, rough patch at the start of the year, from a vaccine injury. I'm going to say that, you know, I don't really talk about it just because I don't want to get cancelled or whatever. People looking at me like, oh, he's a conspiracy guy. But yeah, I truly got affected from my vaccine. Just trying to do the right thing, bro. Like, trying to play my festivals and, you know, pay my rent and just, you know, live life. And for me to be able to do that and have my profession, I had to get vaccinated, which is fine, you know. But it wasn't fine. 2 days later, bro, I was in hospital, my heart was all fucked up and shit. And I'm still healing from that, actually. And that was a hard thing for me to navigate and to speak out about, because people didn't really understand, you know. Like, it's hard just being like, it's easy being like, oh, bro, I've been in hospital because of this happened. But the fact that it happened from something that, I don't want to say pushed on us, but like was like a thing that we had to get in order to have your profession and have your career. So I was a bit iffy about us. That's why I never came out being like boom, 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 like kind of how Dirty Sesh does, or because I was just like, man, if I come out, you know, there's a lot of brands and things that could, you know, potentially could be detrimental to my career and stuff. So I've been quite quiet about it. I've been talking to the right people that need to hear it, like other people that are going through the same thing. Like they felt really not relieved, but really happy that someone like me is on their side in terms 100. Of like understanding. But yeah, that was a hard thing, bro. It was like one of the lowest points in my life, just getting through the healing process. Because some days, you know, I think I'm like, oh man, I'm sweet, and then other days I'll just be fatigued. And so that's something I'm navigating at this time right now. But things are looking up, bro. Like, I've been meditating, like I wouldn't say closer to God, but like my spiritual awareness is very heightened and hypersensitive. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like my third eye is kind of like
boing.
Yeah, something's shifted in my being. Maybe not physically, but definitely like consciously and spiritually, some like higher shit's popping off. Like and I do think it's like, I might sound buzzy, but I think there's a spiritual warfare going on Earth right now, you know, like with all the wars, like all the like pandemics, all the diseases, like look at the water's rising, like things on Earth, like Mother Nature is transitioning into something higher, I feel. But to get to that higher place, you know, we got to go through a lot of growing pains and things purging, like that. That's it, bro. Purging, yeah. So I can feel it, bro. Like, and I never used to be able to feel that kind of stuff because I was more just focused on like what's in my life. But then when you realize that we are all interconnected, some way, shape, or form, bro, like like the actions of other people impact us directly. 100. The actions of like earthquakes on the other side of the world impact us directly because we are all like all one, pretty much. We are all part of it, bro. And yeah, it's I think it's ignorant not to believe it. You know what I mean? Like we are all one, and that's what I'm saying. Like the work that we do in contributing what we have inside here into to the earth and to our people is very important during these times. You know what I mean? So yeah. And
I feel just having that kind of awareness and obviously you going through that circumstance in your health journey, bro, and it sort of almost forced you to, I wouldn't say forced you, but there was an opportunity was presented to you to be like, all right, like, how can I heal myself, or how can I sort of like support myself better?
That's
and you weren't necessarily able to move because of fatigue, but there was the opening there was like, all right, well, now what can I work on?
Yeah.
You know?
It's like when everything outside of your control, like when doctors or like, I don't know, naturopaths, and I've tried so many different therapies, you know, but at the end of the day, it really comes down to you and your spirit, and making that conscious decision of like, I've decided I'm going to heal, or I've decided I'm going to do this, you know, like, and I think a lot of it is the thought process and the thought patterns of what we do, you know, like you could be physically fine, but your mental could be all fucked up, and
100.
You won't be able to move off the couch just because of all the thoughts that are going in your brain. So it's all like the mind and the spirit and the heart is all connected. And so when you've like got what's that, there's that thing, that Māori word of the pillars, all the pillars.
Po.
Yeah. So when all those pillars are like in line, or if one's down, it can get all of them down, but at least like if one of them is down, as long as the spiritual is all good, you know, the mental is all good, it just gives it more of that energy to
more strength,
more strength to get the other one up. So pause. But yeah, like that's kind of been a not cool journey, but like a very resilient journey of mine.
Resilient, and I feel more enlightenment too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I feel, you know, when you do sort of like connect to your spirituality and you start to sort of like unpack, you know, thoughts or recycled thoughts, that's when you sort of like start to really get well. You know, and then you start incorporating the physical, which is the food. You get sunlight, you're out in the earth, so you're not necessarily training or like, you know, moving your body as hectically, and you don't necessarily need to. But I feel what I'm hearing is you're just taking complete responsibility of what you can control and what you can do, and doing it as best as you can.
Yeah, that's it, bro. And like, I think when other people see me doing what I've been doing, even though they're not going through what I'm going through, they're like, oh, bro, what is your routine? And I'm just like, oh, this is what I've been doing. Like sometimes I won't do it because I won't feel that good or whatever, but when I do it, this really helps me, and it helps other people doing like just routine in general, bro. It's so good, eh?
Needed, bro. That's especially if there's ambition, or I keep using that word a lot, but especially if there's something in you that wants to change your circumstance in life, or if it wants to improve the quality, will probably be a better way of saying it. If you want to improve the quality of your life, routine is like essential to sort of like get you prepped and ready, because if you're not sort of like preparing your mental, your spiritual, your physical, then it's hard for you to be ready for anything.
That's
you know what I mean? Whereas
yeah.
you're preparing yourself for anything to come, and you're sort of active in pursuing that.
That's it, my brother. That's it, man.
And so, are you a poet, bro? Like, were you a poet before anything, bro? Or
like, so I started with spoken word, bro. Like, but it wasn't really for me. Like, I enjoyed writing it and stuff, but I went to one of the poetry slams, and man, like 5 out of 8 poems was really self-absorbed that I heard. Like, I'm doing this and I ain't going. And so for me, I was just like, oh no, man, I'm gonna stick to this rap shit, you know. Like, I just kind of was like, man, this sound like a lot of these poems sound narcissistic. Like all the poem slams I was going to, they were just talking about like me and I, and I was like, man, that's not really inclusive, you know. But that was just my personal experience from the things I was going to. Of course, there's beautiful poems out there, poetry out there. Like, I work alongside Action Education, and we do like slam poetries, and I help a little bit with the like recording and stuff. So just hearing all these high school kids with the vocab that they have and the narrative that they express is just next level, bro. Like, but yeah, spoken word's not ready for me. Like, I'll do it like if they ask me to, like, oh, could you do a spoken word piece on this? I'll make sure I, craft something. But like, if it's just me, man, I'm just all about kind of like my poetry is in the raps. Yeah.
Because I just really enjoy just the way that you communicate thoughts and also like sort of like how you interpret what's happening here, and sort of like using your verbal expression just to sort of like lay words together, bro, being a lyricist, and just how nicely everything sort of like flows, bro. So it's really beautiful to sort of like see, and to see you just going from strength to strength, bro, and for all of your hard work to be acknowledged. It's super next level to see another Polynesian brother just really making waves and standing in his truth, bro.
Appreciate that, G.
Super proud of you, brother.
What about you, man? Like, yeah, I've been watching you for a while, like, not on some stalker shit, but like, just seeing what you do. And I was at first, when I threw a story, I was like, oh, what's this guy about? And then I seen your truth and stuff. I'm like, bro, this is on, man. So it's respect, brother.
Appreciate that, bro. And yeah, I think, you know, just where things are heading and you know, just with how things are sort of like progressing in terms of all the things that are, all the plates that you're spinning, bro. All the new things that are on the horizon in terms of the crypto space that me and you are sort of like talking about. But that's a whole other conversation. But to be included in sharing space with you and some of these things, bro, and now connecting in this kind of format and setting, bro, it's like I really thrive with connecting with like-minded people, and that was the intention of this podcast. Brother. And so just want to say thank you for coming on board, bro, for sharing some of your thoughts and some of your story, and just want to give it over to you, Kaz, if you have any sort of like last words that you might want to share for the listeners. I
appreciate you, bro. I appreciate your platform, and you know what you do for your community, our community, you know, it's all the same. But yeah, I just want to, you know, shout out to the bro, and yeah, shout out everybody just wanting to do something different, you know. Like I feel like it's been a lot, especially in Auckland, man. It's been so bland, like with our restrictions. And then, man, I went out the other night, and there's so much anxiety and just looks on people's faces. You know, they're not used to just like bonding again. So it's cool. Like, I just want to, I don't know, spread my love and light. Just give it to everybody listening out there, and whatever you're going through, just know that you're not alone, and just know that we are all interconnected in some way, shape, or form, because that's facts. And just much love to everybody. Got a new song coming out.
That's right.
Well, when's this podcast gonna drop?
So this one would probably be after the release. Sorry.
Sweet, cool. So I got a joint with Lissy that's probably just dropped. Check that out. It's called Pray for More. Also got the video on YouTube, and my video Hibiki Freestyle that dropped a couple weeks back as well. So yeah, just check out my music. If you like it, then you know you like it, and if not, then that's all good as well. But yeah, I just want to send my love to everybody listening, and much love. Light side. Massive, brother. And honestly, finally, those of you listening, definitely check out Melodownz on YouTube, his music that is coming out, or that is out, and I'll just leave a link in the description for that actual link. So go down there, check it out, run it up, say that you've come from the podcast, and show some love to the brother. And since I've come on your podcast, bro, I might have to get you to come on my Kava Corner, brother.
I'm keen on Kava.
That'll be a cool vibe, man.
Down, brother. We'll make it happen. So
us,
peace and love, brother, and everyone else.
My G.
Much love. Let's go.